Heidi Love in the house, dropping knowledge and facts, uncovering the truth, no need for acting lax. She ain't afraid to speak her mind, breaking through the lies, rising up with love, taking us to new highs. We're living in a world full of secrets and deceit, but Heidi's here to expose, bringing truth to the beast. She's got a message, spreading it far and wide, from addiction to hope. She's on the other side. Ooh, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Unfiltered Rise with me, Heidi Love. And today I have with me Brad Lail, and he is going to talk to us about some crazy 33rd things. And you know I love things with the number 33 in it, but it's not just the number, it's also the line. And I'll let him explain that. Brad, how you doing today? This is wild.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out. A lot of people are interested in the 33rd parallel because I think their whole life is, they hear about things like that. I know growing up, I've heard things about 33rd parallel that like you hear it, you hear it from ghost stories or, I watched a lot of unsolved mysteries and stuff like that. So it was, I remember hearing those kind of things. And it wasn't until I kind of got older, 2008, 2009 that I started, I was in the military at the time, and I started kind of looking into I remember hearing about the 33rd parallel about some, because growing up, I mean, my whole life, again, my family, my dad always told ghost stories. We always did haunted hay rides and stuff for people. We always went and we tried to do ghost tours wherever we could go. And, we got a crazy family like that. We like to buy little recording devices and things like that. So as I got older, I started looking more into the 33rd parallel, but then I realized that there's nothing out there, and that seemed impossible because it was talked about so often. How come there's nothing online about like anything to do with the 33rd parallel? It was driving me, insane. But I didn't really think, just like anything, when I was 25, for example, I'm 41 now. When I was 25, I didn't think about politics much. It was just, it existed. I wasn't very political. I was just like, who cares, about any of that stuff. It was kind of how I was with, paranormal stuff as well. But it actually, my time in the military, I got to travel, I got to be a part of an Army officer's staff. And so I got to see and witness a lot of things that most people in the military wouldn't get to do. And I started seeing, I would travel a lot, like I said, and I would get to see these buildings and stuff. And it was just nothing ever made sense to me. Why would we go to certain meetings? Why are we in the Middle East for certain reasons? And so I started again, it wasn't until I got out of the military, which was 2010, that I realized something else is going on here, because it's just too weird that there's these old buildings. They're all throughout the Middle East that we've never heard about. There's more pyramids than just the 3 pyramids of Giza that we hear about all the time. There's literally 180 pyramids in Egypt that that nobody ever talks about, but you can go to these places and you can scrape samples off the wall and you'll see that there's all kind of chemicals and stuff in the wall that we don't know about them. Even people who claim to be like geologists and stuff here in the United States don't even know about the fact that there are other pyramids around the world. Literally, Mount Kailash is on the 33rd parallel. There's a pyramid there. The Antarctica, obviously there's pyramids there. There's pyramids everywhere. There's literally pyramids here in South Carolina where I'm at. And so, every time you see them, every time you hear about them, if you do get to hear about them, they're going to say stuff like, well, it was just a mound where the king of the village or the chief of the village had his house. And it's like, that's a pretty big place to have a house for a,
or garbage. It's a garbage mound.
It's a garbage mound or so there's something. They never say oh, this is a pyramid. But when you see these places, it's pretty clear that it's pyramids. And I don't mean to get on pyramids, but I'm just trying to give you an example of I start seeing these kind of things. There's a place it's like the ziggurat or something like that in Iraq. I saw it and it was like this giant place. I'm like, I've never heard about this in history books. And how come I've never heard about this? And it just so happens to be on the 33rd parallel, right? So,
yeah. Oh, they're just not going to mention that one, right?
Right.
There's only certain ones that they mention, the Mayan ones, or like you said, the couple in Egypt that they mentioned, but they don't mention the Grand Canyon. They don't mention other places.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. And they don't mention a lot of things, they don't mention cities underneath lakes. They don't mention it seems like it's an orchestrated, everybody's working together to hide this history from us, or at least a group of people, whoever that might be, to hide this history from us. And once I I leaned into the old history and seeing buildings and things not making sense. Like, the capital of South Carolina, for example, was built in the 1800s, and it's all marble and granite. And it's like, where did we get the tools from then to do that? And then again, that stuff kind of, led me down the path of like, I just started questioning things. It was more or less like, why are we, fighting wars in the Middle East? This doesn't make sense. And then it led me down the path of like, more conspiracy things. Like, why are, there's, I don't want to get, talk about elections and stuff. I don't want to get you kicked off the air, but there's stuff like, but there's stuff from 2008, 2012, 2016 that I started seeing. And that conspiracy stuff usually, conspiracy things usually lead you to paranormal, and then paranormal leads you to spirituality. So I started, once I got past the conspiracy stuff, I started noticing how, there's a lot of paranormal things that tie into some of these places. And I remember looking up one day, there's a thing called the National UFO Reporting Center.org website, which is where the FAA will tell you to report like any kind of, UFO, UAP, whatever you want to call them. And I went and looked at this place, this website. It's not an official government website. It is just a .org that they tell you to go. It's literally one guy who runs it. And all you do is you submit your story, and that guy posts the stories on the website. And you can sit there and read stories from your area, all around your house right there. Probably tons of them right there in your local area. And I found one that was in my hometown, and turned out that the video that the guy posted, the stuff that he posted, was literally right over my mom and dad's house, which is where I grew up for my whole life, So I started like, asking more questions about people who I grew up with. Have you ever seen anything? Or, have you? And they, yeah, I saw this. And it's funny how people don't realize that they've had so many encounters with paranormal stuff until you bring it up. And they go, well, now that I think about it.
They don't want to look crazy. Yeah. They're nervous about telling other people because you can feel weird. So they feel weird.
Yeah. And it was always like, it wasn't until I started going, hey, I believe these things. And they go, you know what? Now that I think about it, there was a guy, I'll give an example. A guy I used to work for. He lived in the middle of the national forest, and he lives right across the road from my brother. He literally grew up there his whole life. He's 60 years old now. And he said, I asked him, I said, have you ever seen any lights? Because there's just the famous thing called the ghost light, the Gravel Hill light where I'm from. And I said, have you ever seen that? And he goes, oh man, I ain't never seen nothing like that. And after about 20 minutes of talking to him, then he goes, you know what? When we were teenagers, man, we used to go sit in the woods, and we would watch these little lights flying around all the time. Is that what you're talking about? And I go, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. But people have those kind of stories all the time. And the more I asked, the more people started saying, yeah, I saw this crazy creature in the woods, or I saw a UFO. Like literally everybody in my family has seen or heard Bigfoots and orbs and puckwudgies and ghosts and all, you name it. It's a paranormal hotbed where I'm from, which is right in the middle of the national forest. So I looked it up one day, and it turned out we were on the 33rd parallel, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So then I started making the connection of there's other things that are happening on the 33rd. Again, that's when I started off with the United States, and I started seeing how like some of the bigger hot spots in the world or in the United States are on the 33rd parallel. For example, Roswell, New Mexico is on the 33rd parallel. The Phoenix, Arizona, which is where the Phoenix Lights happen. LA, which is obviously there's the Battle of LA that happened in 1942, or is it 41? 42, I think. But a lot of these big events happen. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas on the 33rd parallel. And I started noticing these things all throughout the Bermuda Triangles on the 33rd parallel. So I started noticing these things throughout the United States, but then it transferred over to overseas too. So I'm like, well, that crosses like where wars are happening, where atomic bombs are dropping, where, you know, all these spiritual places are, like I said earlier, like Mount Kailash, and you know,
Mount Hermon, you said too, right?
yes,
Isn't that
Mount.
one on? Yeah.
That's right, Mount Hermon, which is where the fallen angels fell, and that's where there's currently a NATO base at the top of Mount Hermon right now, and it's where Jesus had his transfiguration, and you know where Jesus was crucified was the 33rd parallel. So like, there's a whole list of things, and they cross the 33rd parallel. So it can't be a coincidence. I mean, there's been tons of nuclear bombs dropped on the 33rd parallel. I think almost all of them have been dropped on the 33rd parallel, or you know, close to all of them. All of them were tested on the 33rd parallel. So, you know, again, we when you cross over like Arizona, New Mexico, California, places like that, you got observatories that are on the 33rd parallel, like the Lucifer telescope, or you know, I mentioned here. I'll pull it up because I don't want to miss anything. I listed it out because when I start mentioning this stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, that one too. It's like, you know, I talk about Dallas, Texas. Well, Rockwall, Texas, which is where the home of Alex Jones is, you know, they've found giant bones there before. And it's also, Rockwall's also where a ranch is located where 4 of the 5 red heifers came from for the recent sacrifice.
I know about that. Yes.
Yeah,
I
so
just did one about the red heifers. That I didn't know it was on that though, on the 33rd.
yeah,
That's wild.
it is wild. I mean, when you start looking at you know, the Superstition Mountains, the Arizona Meteor Crater, Snowflake, Arizona, which is where, you know, Travis Walton was abducted. You know, there's countless places like the San Diego, California, which is where the USS Nimitz, you know, the Tic Tac video was filmed. There's tons of alleged underground bases there, included in the Catalina Islands, which is 33rd parallel. Disneyland is in Anaheim, California.
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's on the 33rd. You know, so I can literally go on and on. Skinwalker Ranch is, you know, is on the 34th parallel, which is
right there.
Yeah, it's pretty close by. So I don't think 33rd parallel is something that's like a set in stone, that, you know, line necessarily. I think of it as like it's a like a region of Earth where energies, like excess energies, kind of twirl about on top of the Earth's surface at certain times of the day. Like I'm just gonna say it because she'll probably kill me. My mom, where she lives now, every night around, you know, 7 o'clock, when the sun starts kind of going down, she gets all these orbs flying around her backyard, and she's had a UFO come in her backyard, and there's, you know, she saw like a shadowy Bigfoot looking thing in her backyard, and it's always in the same spot, and
around the same time.
And the reason I say that
sounds like a portal. Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because there's this thing called telluric currents that come up from they're electromagnetic currents that come up from the Earth that kind of twirl around these certain spots. So see, when the sun starts pressing down against our magnetic field, it at certain times of day, when it's turning, when the sun is going away and the moon is coming in, then those things are kind of relaxed more. They're not as compressed, so you can't interact with that energy. And so I think that's when these sort of portals are open up. It's just like a vortex of energy that's kind of sitting there, and these things can come in and out of our reality anytime they want.
They know how to bend it, right? They know how to, there's certain things, like otherwise there wouldn't be mystery schools or all these things. Like I always tell people, like, they're like, oh, well, why do you think the 13 bloodline families run things or whatever? I'm like, listen, these people aren't like us. They're not educating like us. They're not doing the things like us. They are in a whole nother world. Like, and we'll never know. Right. That goes to alchemy, everything. Yeah.
Well, I think they live in the upside down of us. I think they are in the antimatter world of our world. Like we have if you look at a trampoline, when you push your fist up through a trampoline, if you're looking at it from the top, you see around hump. But
Mhm.
what's pushing that up underneath is something else, right? So I'm
Right.
affecting the matter, and I'm pushing my hand up through a trampoline to where it looks like let's say a mountain, right? But conversely, on the other side of on the upside down world, it may be a cavern, right? So like
Mhm.
if everything has duality, so like if we exist in the matter in the material world, they exist in the antimatter, in the um invisible spectrum of the world. They live in the things we can't see around us. We can only see visible light, right? We can't see what's to the left and to the right of us. We can't see what's around us. We kind of have this we project this light, this almost like force field around ourselves, like we're
Mhm.
mini projectors sort of projecting our own reality. And the collective consciousness is what connects these realities together, right? And it's like our shared experiences and our shared beliefs is what unites it and makes it into the visual spectrum that we see. So I think they
Mhm.
exist outside of our material world. And if you read a lot of, FBI files and things like that, these top secret documents that they release on Friday secretly, they usually say stuff like they vibrate into our reality,
Mhm.
and they can change their vibrational rate, their frequency essentially, because we all vibrate at a certain frequency. Where our thoughts are
Yep.
vibrations. Are at the inside of every atom is quarks, and those quarks vibrate, and they create wavelengths, they create frequencies, and we just happen to be in the most perfect zone of frequency. We're in that perfect everything. Think about Earth. I mean, we're in the
Well, like, why did they take the bells down? Why did they stop with the big gigantic organs? What were they for? Like, obviously they want us stuck in a certain frequency, because
yes.
if you elevate above or below a certain thing and you don't think like everybody else, you begin to feel really weird, like really weird. And you're like, well, why don't people see what I see? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
well, if you think about people who are on drugs and people who are in fear, people who are on drugs, they have a low vibration, very slow vibration. And if you lower your vibrations enough, things from the unseen world in the electromagnetic spectrum can attach itself to that person
mhm,
because
mhm,
their vibrations are so slow. It's almost like something can jump on the jet ski if you're going real slow, right? But if
mhm,
you're going fast, they can't catch up with you, right? So if you're
right.
vibrating at a higher frequency, if you're vibrating in the frequency of love, you vibrate at a higher level. And so these things
Mhm.
can attach themselves to you. And I think that's why some people can see paranormal things and others can't. I think it's a matter of your vibrational state. I really do. I think that if you my mom, my dad died in 2023, and my mom hasn't, been the same since. She's struggles with it. And I
Right.
think that's why, and she started seeing things at her house around that time. Again, it's a low
Mhm.
vibration, and because it's not because she's a bad person as a
No,
low vibration. It's just
no.
a fear, a depression, something that slows down her light. That's something that
Her
dims her light,
or
right?
her protection, like maybe it's like the seal, right? Because if you talk to people that do a lot of studying about magic or different weird things, what do they say? They say, don't move in a straight line, travel in arcs and circles, right? Well, why? That makes a lot of sense if you start thinking about it in like an aura sense. Like, is
Yeah.
this your seal? Is it easier to drive in a circle or a straight line? Well, it's much easier to go in a straight line. So maybe it's much easier for them to go into that straight line. And my stepson, and he speaks about this, so I share sometimes, but he was really addicted, and I know this sounds weird, just to mushrooms and weed, but he was doing them together a lot, and it broke him. And he said he was seeing things like bringing things back pretty much on accident, and it messed with him so bad that he went into psychosis, and we had to put him inpatient. Like, this was not a short time frame. This was like almost a year of recovery from the psychosis, because he was doubling up on the mushrooms like almost every weekend with the weed. And I guess there's something in the two properties chemically that don't mix well or something, but it can bring your vibration into these other areas, and it completely messed him up. Now he's better, but he talks about some stuff, and I'm like, yeah, well, it makes sense if you read the Bible, because what does it say? It says that these disembodied spirits that have nowhere to go are looking for a place to rest because they have to just wander in this desert. Well, I don't think it's a real desert. I think it's a vast nothingness, right? So if you come in looking like a bright light, no matter how much you're vibrating, you probably look a lot better than where they're at. That's
Yeah,
what
and they want to. I mean, imagine how insanely jealous you would be if everybody is living in this perfect warmth. Well, I'm just warm in here. It's a perfect temperature. It's, I get to experience food and sex and drugs
Yeah.
and cigarettes and whatever pleasure I want in this world. I can experience that. And these things, they can see us and they're like, what the hell? Like, why
That was
can't
the
we
whole
have
point
that?
why they fell. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the whole point. The whole point of why the angels gave up their station in heaven was because they saw Adam and Eve getting it on, and they were like, "Hey, not fair. We were the big brother that came first, like, and why don't we get it? We want to do that." Like, and God's like, "No, well, you're eternal. You don't need a posterity. Like, that's silliness, I mean, you don't need to do that." But that, even knowing at that level, they still gave up everything for that. Like,
Mhm.
that's a lot. That,
Yeah,
that's
and with our, like, if you think of us, you said an aura a while ago, right? So if you think of
Mhm.
us as we're electromagnetic beings, we are little balls of magnetism, so we can attract anything into our lives, right?
Mhm.
You want positivity, you can attract that into your life. I'm not talking about manifestation and abundance and all
Right.
this stuff. I'm talking literally about, like, the physics of us is energy. We're light beings. We're
Yes.
literally emanating a energy, a light. And when someone tries to take your light, and when someone tries to dim your light through, constant pornography, constant drugs, constant, alcohol, or whatever your pleasure, food, whatever it is, when that light becomes, when you continue to do those things, you're letting demons in, and your light gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. And eventually that's where people end up, on that low vibration again, because you're literally letting down that wall, that veil that's around you, that little force field of that bubble that's around you. You're letting that negative energy in, and excuse me, just like with vampires, you have to let them in your house, right? I mean,
Right.
you have to, like, just in the same with Christ, you have to let Christ into your heart, right? You have to tell someone, you have to tell these things, you can come in here. And so they constantly push out things through, through radio towers, literally,
Mhm.
because what I'm talking about right now is we're in the visible light. And then to the left of it, and I've said this 1,000 times, so I'm sorry if somebody's heard this, but to the left of it is the invisible part of the spectrum, which is infrared, radio waves, microwaves. And then the other side is ultraviolet rays, X-rays, gamma rays, right? It's too hot, it's super fast on one side, and it's too slow, it's super cold on one side. So that would insinuate that if things are slow vibrations, then there's no heat, and no heat means it's cold. So I would imagine that hell is probably very cold and dark, and that's what hell is. I don't think it's, like, it's so cold that it burns, right? It's almost like a
Mhm.
fire that burns. And so that's what I'm talking about when I talk about this stuff. I'm looking at something through the lens of, we are literally, like, the earth that's around us is they talk about the firmament. The firmament is is a prism. It's a plasma prism that is around us, and the
Mhm.
sun shines through that prism and projects us, the visible light, God's light, into this perfect little world, and everything else, like I said, can see us. And so these telescopes and stuff that they have, like the Lucifer telescope, what is that? That's a reverse called a spectroscopy. That's a reverse prism, to where they can look into the space around us. Okay, so what they're seeing is, they can see these things. They can see these demons with these telescopes. They're not looking into space, that's Mars and all this other nonsense. They're looking into something that's literally in the invisible spectrum, in the invisible part of the spectrum around us. So again, these things are they hate us. They hate
Mhm.
how we get to experience God's light. And if you think about what I'm talking about, this is exactly what you just said. We're made in his image. we're made in God is light, and we're made in his image. So we are literally, we're creators. We can do anything. We can experience anything we want. And, they hate that. And on the other side of that is, the other demons. There's the UFOs on the other side of that, that the demons on the left side are the disembodied dark shadows that you see that's holding you down. That's, hags that are raping you in the middle of the night, that kind of stuff, like the incubus, succubus stuff. And then to the right is the other demons, the aliens that are trying to, what are they trying to do? They're trying to recreate, they're trying to procreate with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
To have hybrid beings that can come live and exist in the perfect, but it's a being in the visible light is not, they'll never be able to really achieve it in my mind, because it's something that is special. It's unique to people who live in this, to God's, us, to everything that's in the visible
Our soul,
light.
right?
Yeah,
It's like
something
the
unique
difference of a soul. Yeah,
yeah.
well, the soul is these disembodied spirits of the Nephilim or whatever. Like, they were not created in God's image, nor were they created with a quote unquote soul, because that's why they're stuck here. That's why they don't have authorization to move on, because they don't have that at all. They can recreate the physical, they can recreate anything. And I do believe that there's heavy influence on some of these people. Like, well, don't you want this or don't you want that? And then you'll talk to people sometimes and you'll say, yeah, before that person became really famous or got whatever they wanted, or, like these superstars, they were way different and blah, blah, blah. But now they're like, not like that at all. And then you wonder, right? Like, well, I mean, how much of that person is actually that person still? And then you get these diseases the same way, where people are saying, oh, they're split personality, they're this, they're that. I work in mental health. There are serious mental health problems that are real, and there are some things that are not the same. And I can feel the difference. I don't have to explain the difference, like as far as like medically, I can't, but you can feel it. It's a thing. So
Yeah. And, what I was just talking about with us being in the visible part of the spectrum, right? That's where the term human comes from. Hue, man. It's literally a color, like where the colors of the hues are colors.
Mhm.
So we're literally the colors of the world, the colors of light in the form of a man. And what you were just talking about with, schizophrenia and stuff like that, like I think these people can see beyond that. Like they're at such a low vibration through trauma or whatever, that they can see into that realm there, because their vibrations are so low. I've
or
said it
even
before.
the genetic component. Like, I mean, it could run in families. Like, people used to
Sure.
be seers. Well, like, now you're just crazy. And so no. And as to your point with the color of a human, Adam means ruddy, I believe, if I remember that correctly. So, like, red, and I'm not saying everyone's red. I'm just saying, like, that plays into that whole situation. They talk about colors of everybody in the Bible, like Noah's color, Adam's. Like, it's weird, like these bigger people, these bigger players. So it makes you wonder, where you're
Yeah.
going with
I,
that.
I think what it is, though, is we exist on different planes, and that's what I was trying to say about the upside down, the antimatter. That just, we kind of talked about it before the show, as it's like pages of a book. We're just on a different page, and I think there's many pages to the book, and I think there's different versions of us on
Mhm.
every page. I think that sometimes I think that maybe we're, the demons that are possessing us, I think they may be us in another world. I really think they're bizarro. If you watch Seinfeld, they're
Mhm.
the bizarro
Yeah,
versions of
the
us, right? It's like,
bizarro world, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
And
and
so,
why do they put out shows like that? Like, everybody knows about Stranger Things now, right? Like, yeah,
right.
and I mean, if you knew anything, if you were awake when that came out, you were like, "Holy crap!" They're saying the quiet part out loud. Like, whoa,
Yeah, I
But
was on
here
the
we
show.
are.
I
Yeah.
was on the show as a
Oh,
extra.
that's cool.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I was invited back for a couple other seasons as well. But it's funny because, like, whenever and that brings me to my next point, actually, is, when I was on the show, I saw, like, I was in a scene, and you mentioned Princess Bride, right? Didn't you mention? Okay, so like the guy his name is Cary Elwes that was in that movie. So he was the bad guy in Stranger
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Things
yeah.
on season 3 that I was on, and the scene I was in was a scene with him, and he was about to announce his election at the fair, and my job on the show was I was a maintenance man who was setting up the fair. Okay, so
Ah.
I walked by him in a couple scenes, but the whole point of saying that is like his banner looked like one of our presidential candidates in 2016, and
Mhm.
so there was a a symbolic. They symbolically made, oh, the evil man who's running for office has the same sign, right? So there's a lot of symbology there that's something that really didn't. It was like in the background of the show. It wasn't a big feature of the show, but it was subliminally there because to convince you like it's evil. There's evil. This is an evil person that's running for president, and but it was also filmed in Georgia. And a lot of people don't realize that Georgia is the new LA. Georgia is where like everybody in LA it was taxed too much. So people literally moved all their studios to Atlanta, Georgia, or to Georgia in general. And so like all the major movies are filmed there now. All the shows, The Walking Dead, the Marvel movies, all that stuff is filmed in LA now. And again, LA is in Atlanta now. And Atlanta is on the 33rd parallel. And so my theory on that is whenever these telluric currents are kind of spinning in these areas, that's whenever, they broadcast their messages from these areas to kind of amplify their message, right? They broadcast it at certain times of day. Policy is written at certain times of day. It's a ritualistic component to all this stuff that, we always look past, but it's what they're doing is they're amplifying. See, people look at ley lines, and that's what I call 33rd parallel as a ley line. People look at throughout history, Native Americans have called it spirit lines. It's something that they've literally buried their dead on these ley lines. They do it all throughout Europe and throughout England and places like that. They bury their loved ones on these lines because the thought is that their dead loved ones can enhance the lives of the living, and they can communicate with them easier and they can access them easier. And so a lot of these ley lines are on these areas where they kind of can amplify their message, right? They can kind of like broadcast, right? They're casting a spell. They can broadcast their message from. And again, when we talk about words, we put words together, it's called spelling. So they're literally casting spells from these lines and sort of amplifying it from these energy areas. And which is no coincidence that all of the Capitol buildings in the United States are right on the top of ley lines. Jackson, Mississippi has a volcano underneath the Capitol building, literally I think it's an active volcano. Bermuda Triangle is a seamount, a volcanic seamount. So which means it used to be a volcano, right? So the reason I say that is because telluric currents that I mentioned earlier flow from these areas. They come from springs, they come from rivers, they come from oceans, they come from any crack in the earth that they can seep through. They come through fault lines. Charleston, South Carolina is on the 33rd parallel. It's located on one of the biggest faults in the United States. So I don't remember the place in Knoxville, Tennessee, that's like the CERN of Tennessee. But I can't remember the name. I get beat up for not remembering the name of it, but it's located on Oak Ridge, I think it's called. It's located right on top of a fault line. So it's no these places aren't just coincidentally put there. These telescopes these observatories aren't put on these lines for just any reason. Nuclear bombs aren't detonated for just any reason. There's a reason why nuclear bombs are detonated on the 33rd, and it's because at certain times of the day, when the harmonics of the earth and the harmonics of the sun align, that's when the bomb has to drop, and that's when it has mass impact. Because what I just said, again, it's a vortex of energy that happens at a certain time of the day. And so, so in order for a nuclear bomb to detonate and have mass impact, it has to be dropped at a certain time of the day. I don't remember which, on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, where on the 33rd parallel. I don't remember which one dropped first, but the second one, the pilot flew around in the air for like many hours until they dropped the
Oh, wow.
second one. Because again, to have mass impact, they had to drop it at that
Mhm.
exact time, right? So what I'm talking about here is natural earth energies that allow these things. They allow evil people in the world to amplify their evil messages, to continue to keep us in a low vibration, a low frequency, a low hum, always in fear. Everything they show on TV is fear, and it's anti what we actually feel in the world. None of it is really how we feel. We're not really racist like they say we are. We're not really no, people aren't fighting with each other and burning down buildings like they say we are. Everything is a fear. Everything is, how many times do in your 40s, how many times did you hear growing up that cell phones cause cancer and apples cause
Oh, yeah.
cancer, and
Oh, yeah.
microwaves are causing, and all of it's probably some truth to it, but we heard it. Chlorofluorocarbons, I don't know what happened to those things, but
Mhm. Yeah.
they're
And my
all this,
hairspray. Yeah.
yeah, all this stuff was killing us, man. It was all, we're going to be dead in a few years. And again, it's rinse and repeat over and over and over. The
And it
bad
was that we
guys.
were gonna freeze. We were gonna freeze, but now
Yeah.
we're gonna be too hot. Now it's warming.
Yeah. So again, what does that do? What is, if you constantly have someone in a constant state of negative vibrations and fear, it's going to keep them in a place where they can't access their true selves. They can't access their mind. They can't tune because your body is literally a radio station. From the mental plane where our spirit exists, we're just being channeled in through this radio station that are our bodies. And so if we don't have our frequency right, then we will never be able to experience the true power of creating with sound and using our voices to speak things into existence. We're telepathic people. We can actually speak telepathically. It because every time you think about somebody they call, that's the kind of
Yeah.
shit that I'm talking about. It literally
Yeah.
happens. And so that
And
thing is,
people tune it out, and it's weird. I think there is a genetic component to what you're saying, because you'll hear it in certain families. Like my grandpa always, oh, we just have a sixth sense, right? Like, oh, we are just born with that. Like maybe,
yeah,
but maybe it has something to do with your genetics, or maybe it has something to do with your blood type, but I'm telling people this: science or seance, whichever way you want to put that in there. And from a nurse, like, I get how that sounds, but I'm telling you this, like, why are they constantly coming at you with 100 different things, like, pokes and this and that? You get what I'm saying? Like, from the time you are born, and then you're constantly taking this or that or whatever. And I'm not saying I don't use medicine, I do, but I'm just saying we have to think and use discernment about what is bringing down that vibration, like you're speaking about, because I'll tell you how if you're super low on the vibrational scale, or if you're a little bit higher. Higher is easier. Babies and dogs. Babies and dogs know when somebody's vibration is higher. I watch it. They will
yep,
watch you. They will be like, hey, hi, person. And they'll be little. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like 4 months, like little tiny people know, like, oh, this is safer. Dogs know this is safer. This is not safe. Watch animals. They
yeah.
know.
They literally come into my yard, and
Mhm.
dogs will find me if they're lost. It's like they're finding me so I can help them. And that sounds weird, but it
No,
seems
my
like,
mom's like Snow White. She has
yeah,
stuff going to her all the time.
things will come to me, and my mom too. My mom's the same way. But I think some of it, we are born with it. And I think that's what the point of these DNA, 23andMe and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I think that's what
Oh,
that is.
yeah.
I think they're looking for certain blood types, right?
Yeah.
That
They're
are
looking for a gene,
they're
like the
looking for
gene of
something.
Isis or
Yeah.
Genesis. Like,
Oh, interesting. But
yeah, I've
I
done
think
some work on this.
I literally
Yeah.
think that that's what they're looking for and to be honest with you, sometimes I feel like and it's interesting that my mom just told me a story the other night that I'd never heard before, which is bizarre because I talk about this kind of stuff all the time. So you would think that she would be like, I got to tell you this. She was like, when I was pregnant with you, she said, me and your dad went into the same national forest where I was talking about, where they went to see the ghost light. And she said, and they
Wow.
saw it. And she said, whenever that she saw it, it startled her, and it went, it it was
Mhm.
close by, and it went, ugh, and it shook her. And she said she started having, pains in her stomach and stuff like that since. And I, I always think it's so funny that I never thought that I was like special in any way. Like I'm not a magician. I'm not anything like that. But I've always felt different than everybody else. And I told my mom, like, I wonder if that was something that's like some kind of a divine spark in you or something. Something took over you, and because I don't feel like some of the, I don't feel like what I'm doing now is by accident. I don't feel like
Mm-mm.
going to the places I've been to in life, and I don't think talking on shows and stuff like that is an accident. I think it's, there was some sort of a moment where, you know, I feel like I'm a star seed sometimes. I don't like to say that because it sounds
Right.
weird and it sounds creepy. I'm not, but I feel like sometimes I was sent specifically here to wake people up and try to get people this kind of information. And I think it's just a light worker. It's like I'm setting up I'm helping set up these little light towers all over Earth to start waking people up. That's kind of what I feel like.
Well,
And
that's what a prophet used to be called, man. Like,
I'm not a prophet.
used
Listen,
to
yeah,
I know, but I said in the used to be, right? Like
yeah,
in the used to be, but or a healer, let's do that. Like here's these things like that they used to harness energy to heal people. They used to do certain they still some people do still, but like a lot of things have gone by the wayside. But why do they say then music is so healing, blah blah blah. This is so healing, da 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 frequency. Well, people want to say, okay, like you said, the spark of life. That's important because our hearts are electrical. Everything that runs in us is electricity. But also, like when you're making a baby for IVF, do you know they tried that forever and ever and ever and they couldn't quite figure it out? And they would put it all the things to everything's perfect. Do you know they have to add electricity for that to work? Literally, the spark of life. Like this is a real thing. And so, of
interesting.
course, energy transfer matters. It matters. Like it just does. So maybe there
Yeah,
was a transfer of energy there somehow with you, you
and
know?
And listen, I want to be clear that I don't think I'm in any kind of way some kind of a psychic or anything like that. I
No.
just think that I've always felt like I had this purpose because there are certain things throughout life that where I'm always, and I think my mom goes through it too, where we never feel like we belong anywhere. We never feel like, and it almost feels like people don't like our energy or
Oh
something.
my gosh. Me and my husband were talking about this the other day and we both have this. So
Yeah, well,
I
it might be
totally
something
get
with
it.
yeah, it might be something within all of us as people like us, like Sam, like Tony Merkel or
Like
Mark
healers. We'll
Steves.
just say
Just
like a healer because that's not psychic, right? That's just a helper, like a helper or whatever, you know?
well, I just think that we have this ability to. Oh, I just lost a little sound. I don't know if that was me.
Oh, well, I'll just talk for a minute while you're fixing that. I can still hear you okay. Uh, but
You can still hear
yeah,
me
I
fine.
get
Okay, there we go.
yeah. Yep. I get it though what you're saying because like we didn't ask for this either. That's the weird thing. Like nobody wants this because I'm telling you, number one, you don't feel like you belong. Number two, you're either always too much or not enough for a lot
Yes,
of people.
for people,
Number
anybody.
three,
Yeah.
like even your own family, a lot of times will not accept or appreciate whatever you're saying. And the only person I ever felt that did was my dad or my grandpa. Okay, like certain specific people. And now my mom, as she's starting to wake up, I feel more connected with her, and I'm like, that's weird. And my husband says it too, and it's a really rejectable it's a hard place to be like you're like, and I always just tell my husband like the scripture about if you love Jesus and you're trying to help the message, then people will hate you
Yes.
because that's the only thing I can say. I don't know what else to say when it's your own family or your friends. Even my own friends are like, I don't really want to listen to your stuff. Like it freaks me out or it scares me
Yeah.
or this or that. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to help you, you know?
Listen, I just think that we're here for a specific reason at this specific time to help people wake up at this time and see the things around us to help because when I explain, I have a hard time explaining things sometimes, believe me, but sometimes whenever I explain things to people, they get it. and they'll tell me too, like, you made it make sense for me, because I'm a dummy, you know what I mean? Like I can speak in plain language. I don't know anything about physics. I don't know anything about, but I can speak from it from a
You've
uninhibited.
experienced. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a point of view that I look at it, that I don't need somebody to tell me what this is or that is. I can sense it in the air. I can feel it. And so I come at it from that point of view all the time, from my personal experience in life. you
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
I just had a podcast with a guy where we were talking about self-sabotage, and he actually said, I was telling him how even when they tell you it's going to rain, think about how much that affects your day, right? It's like,
Mhm.
oh, I got to do this, and oh, we got to do that, or we got to get in before this happens, or we got to pull all the chairs in, or whatever. It's going to affect your day in some way. And I think that's the method that these people use, is just little things. It doesn't even have to be big, like something like, the Pokes or whatever like that. It's something so minor that it can throw us off our whole day, as oh, it's going to rain today, and it turns out 90% of the time they're wrong, they're lying.
Yeah.
It's just, I started noticing that. I'm like, I can't even trust the weather report anymore, because it's not true most of the time.
Yeah, we have no idea. Yeah, most of the
But
time.
I I go off intuition all the time. I go off my gut feeling. I started trusting my gut more. I started trusting, and what I think that is the collective consciousness, which I think is Christ consciousness, telling us what to do. We're on the right path, things like that. And when you start listening to your intuition and you start trusting your gut, like I own my own business, and I never worry about money, but it always comes at the moments that I need money. When I'm down to 52 cents in my bank account, I don't worry about it. And the next day, money comes in my account somehow. And it's unbelievable how it works. I'm not saying that I'm magical or anything like that. I'm just telling you that when you don't worry about things, when you have this unbelievable, unshakable faith that God's got control, and you're just living in the moment and living the experience of God, then good things happen to you. So I mean, we're talking about a lot of negative stuff, right, from these negative energies. But there is a positive energy out there that you can tap in. There is a force. There is a good force, and there's a dark side, right? So
Yeah, they got this story from somewhere, man.
that's
I know
exactly
that
right.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm trying to say, is like, I think that the 33rd parallel is this line of energy, and people know about it, and they're tapping into this energy for different reasons, and they don't want us to know about it, because believe me, I've been shadow banned a lot. I've seen episodes go 30,000 views, and all of a sudden stop, right? Just all of a sudden, and
Not
then now you
33.
can't. No, yeah, but
Kidding.
now and then you get to a point where you can't even find it in the search engines you're searching for. So that tells you you're on the right path of what of.
Mhm.
But I had somebody tell me one time that maybe they're trying to slow us down, because it's a slow process. You can't learn everything right away, and I like to think that maybe that's true. Because we you and I have worked in around government type people before. We know that there's good people. We deal with
Mhm.
them. We've dealt with them all the time. I was in the military myself. I'm not a bad person. I know that if I was in the government, I would be doing the right thing. So it
Right.
makes me wonder if there are good people that are just trying to, like, I'm just trying to look at it from devil's advocate. My gut
Right.
tells me that they're evil, right? But
Mhm.
I'm trying to look at it from a devil's advocate kind of point of view, because maybe they're removing this information from the web because they don't want everybody to wake up at the same time, because maybe it could
Right.
cause some kind of a major
Oh, I
thing.
think it would cause a cataclysm. You and I
Right.
both know, working military, me working medical, a bunch of people scared in one area isn't a good thing, because
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but when you first wake up, and I black pilled my mom a little hard, and I didn't mean to. And she called me like last week or something. She was like really upset. And I said, "What's the matter?" And it was so funny because I actually knew, like, I helped her, but it was too much too soon. And she
Yeah.
said, "I just don't want the second coming to happen and me to look up and it's a projection and it's not real." And I was like, "Oh crap." I was
That's
like, "I'm
exactly right.
sorry." Yeah, because
Well,
I told
because
her about Project Bluebeam, and she, yeah, it messed her up a little.
when
Sorry,
we're
mom.
all terrified of you know, something that's going to happen, like I said, with the cataclysm and stuff, maybe that really can happen. You know, maybe that really can happen to where if we all wake up at the same time, because you know, when you start waking up, it's a scary. It's like it's almost like
Mhm.
sleepwalking. You can't wake a sleepwalker because they go you know. That's
Yeah.
kind of how it
Yeah.
was when we first started waking up. It's like you got mad and you wanted to tell everybody. Everybody
Mhm.
goes through it who wakes up. You go through this point of everybody who will listen to you. You're telling people at the side of the burn barrel where you're drinking a beer and you're telling
Yeah.
them, you know, you got to listen to me. Yeah, everybody needs to wake up. But then you eventually get to a point where you go, they'll come to the information on their own. Like you plant seeds
Mhm.
and let it grow in their mind, and that's what usually happens. But I do think that if the energy of the world, all of a sudden everybody woke up and go, oh my God, we're living in a matrix, or that all of a sudden that negative energy is going to be in the world and it might cause mountains to move and floods to happen and things like that. So I think
And
it's
maybe that's the second, great problem, right? Like this whole fire, the baptism of fire, what happened with the flood, like maybe
mm,
that's what it would be. Maybe they all maybe that's what happened. Like it's fun to speculate because they'll never tell us the truth.
of
I'm with
course.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, history is their story, not ours. And
Hmm.
maybe it would just be, I mean, I remember when I started the DNA stuff, because that was my hardest one where I was like, oh my gosh, like, especially being a medical person, like, I'm still a medical person. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if this is true and this and this and this, and then it's attached to this church. And because, familysearch.org pours into ancestry.com, which is run by the Mormons and da 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 da. And my brain just went crazy. And it was all true. I mean, it was. But at that time, right? Like everything, I'm losing like my religion, I'm losing everything. I'm going to lose my family because I told everybody like what you're saying and freaked out a bunch of people. And it wasn't the best, right?
Well, what happened eventually?
Say.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
keep talking over you.
Oh no, I was laughing. Sorry.
But you know, what happens after you wake up, you have that, you want to wake everybody up, and then it becomes like a peace. You become at peace with it, and that's when you enter the spirituality portion of it. And that to me, like again, if everybody woke up, all the systems of the world, everybody's magnetized, everybody's like freaking out, and things may crash and may burn and may flood and whatever. But once you get to that peace side of it, then it's the golden age, right? That they talk about where we can enter the golden age of everybody's love, everybody's light, but again, it can't happen at once. And so maybe that's what it is. Maybe they take things away from us because they want to make it harder for us to access information, because you have to come to it in a slow way. You can't, because the internet does get things to you in a pretty fast way. I mean,
Well, and the
we're
fact is, yeah, we don't, all of us. Okay, if somebody had come and told you all this, would you have believed it had you not figured it out on your own? Because I know
no,
me and I wouldn't have. Yeah, I would have been like, that's crazy. You're crazy. Like,
right.
all of this is wild. Like, get out of here with your nonsense. And so I think we're supposed to find it, like you said, little seeds, and go find it for yourself, because the one thing it connects to, unfortunately, and I'm not saying the whole world is evil. I'm just saying, listen, even let's play with Freemasons, for example. Is every Freemason a bad guy? No, I don't think so. Here's the thing. At the top of every religion or government or club or military, there's always some assholes, okay?
Mm,
And they make their own little club inside the club, and then they ruin it for like you always hear that, oh, one person ruined it for everybody. It's usually never one person. It's usually a couple dipshits. Like,
mm.
and they ruin it for everyone, right? And so I'm not saying like every whatever is all bad, because I think inherently, even when you try to be all bad, there's still good in you because you're still God's creation. And if we all figured out God without religion, like we did, like how we escaped that, like that's a scary thing, first of all. Second of all, to really understand that you can talk to God and not be, I am no one special. I am just a lady that's a mom and like an ex-Mormon lady, but I talk to God and I know he hears me. I like know that. And it took me 34 years in a religion of not knowing that and not knowing how to do that to figure it out, right? Like they don't want that.
No, but you do have to come to the information on your own. I mean, we have loved ones in our lives that we've lost, that we've I've had alcoholics in my family. I've had you can't tell an alcoholic, for example, you have to stop drinking or you're going to die or whatever. Sometimes people have to hit rock bottom before they can bounce back up, kind of thing. But they have to come to that information on their own. They have to want it for themselves. They have to they have to seek the information. And if that's what we're doing, and that's what people who listen to this show are currently doing. But it's a slow awakening right now. I wish it was a little bit faster, but like I said, maybe it's for the best that it's not. What do I know? But because I hate to think that everybody's bad in government, right? And I hate to think that.
No. I don't think it's true, because my uncle was in the government. Like I told you, he's a Green Beret, and like I know him and I know who he is. Like he's not a bad guy. Like
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are like that. I think they're like Mormons. I always take, for example, like, okay, I know a lot of Mormons that don't know crap about the occult side of Mormonism, which is real, but like they're just good people trying to live their best life.
Yes,
do what they're told. And so
yeah, and the thing that we encounter often when you talk to people who aren't receptive to the information, they all say the same thing. They don't want their faith shaken. They don't want to know. I get that, because if you did know, it would really affect you, because it does affect me, because I can't watch TV anymore without seeing the hidden messages in there. I can't listen to radio without hearing the hidden messages in songs. We can't, people who are awake to it. So, I hate that I can't wake them up, but I do plant seeds and they are waking up. It's just, their flower grows at a different pace than mine. And, just everybody's on that different wavelength right now that I'm not on. I'm on a different level of understanding. We're sort of, I think Sam always talks about on his show, like we're black belts in conspiracy, or I mean, they might be just like dipping their toes in. And I think actually, I think people are probably more like us than they admit to. But they are afraid of, like, it's easy to go, well, we got all-stars practice today and we got, ballet tomorrow. It's easy to do that. It's easy to go team, go Gators, or go Gamecocks, or whoever you root for. Mm-hmm. It's easy to do that. It's easier to be that way and to just pretend like that shit doesn't exist in the world.
Well, it's hard to not be accepted too. The problem is like, once and you're on the outside and they can feel it, for whatever reason, like the electricity is different. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, you don't really fit in the box anymore. You're this square peg and you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't even fit with these people I've grown up with all my whole entire life. Like this makes me sad, right? Yeah. Like I just, like the guy on the Matrix that's like, I just want to eat the steak.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
And I get it. Like I totally do, because sometimes you're like, yeah, well, I wish I didn't know too. But then us overreacting. And I talked to this guy that wrote a book about conspiracy theorists, because his family reacted to him so badly. And it's John Kerwin, and he writes the Conspiracy Theorist Guide to Survival. And I think it's really good, because here's the thing. We shouldn't be rearranging the chairs on the Titanic, right? We should be in a hurry. We should be in a panic. We should be getting people off the boat. Like, it makes no sense to play the band while the ship is going down. That doesn't make sense. Everybody that's in a real emergency, which is why I think they do this at different times, because if everybody went crazy, that's when people get trampled to death. Like you read about that every time. Yeah,
that's true. That's 100% true. It's weird how, I don't know if you guys get this. You said you and your husband think alike, and you kind of feel like outcasts and stuff. I have been to places like I've been to Walmart. Obviously I've been to Walmart, but I've been to places before where people they look at me like they see something different than they see.
Like you're an alien.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Like I walked by this guy in Walmart. That's why I brought up Walmart. But I walked by this guy in Walmart, and he was sitting at the little tax table. And I was just walking by. I was going to look at the baseball cards because, again, I'm a baseball nerd. But I walked by, and he like slowly looks up like this. He goes,
Mm-hmm.
and he just looked at me and stared at me until I walked by. And I was like, what in the world? But
Is
people
going
do
on.
that. Yeah, but people do that shit all the time to me.
And babies do
You know?
that to me constantly. And I used to think, well, it's because I look like a mom. It's because I have a lot of kids. Maybe guys are looking at me because I'm a woman. But when it happens with like another woman, not that women can't be attracted. I'm just saying,
Sure.
like an old grandma or somebody, okay? Like not in that realm. Then you start to wonder, right? Because at first you're like, it's because maybe they think I'm cute, or they think this, or maybe they like
Right.
my shirt, or maybe
Sure.
whatever the hell. But then when dogs and babies started doing it, I was like, all right, something's going on. Some service dog is following me that's trained to never leave its owner. And she's like, I'm so sorry. Like this never happens. And I'm like, it happens to me all the time. It's fine. Like I'm not mad about it. It's okay. You just learn, like I'm gracious and happy about it. At the same time, I'm not trying to make her day harder, with this dog, but like it does happen. I mean,
people, I have a niece that she's 11 or 12 years old. She everywhere she goes in her whole life, people have been like, she's something about her. She's special. There's something literally, and I think the same thing about her. Everybody thinks the same thing. We don't know what it is, but there's some kind of specialness to her. And it's almost like we can see that energy somehow, or feel that, sense that energy or something. And I think that might be what I'm talking about. Again, I don't think I'm an alien necessarily or anything like that. I just think that somebody can see something else in me that maybe is not visible to everybody else. And same with you, same with animals seeing us, it's like, again, we're not special people necessarily.
Did it change for you when you woke up? Or was it always this way for you?
Well, my mom and I talked about it because we both have the same thing happen to us, where we're good people. We care about everybody. We give our heart to everything. We will do anything for anybody, literally give them our last dollar. And we have before. And my mom continues to do it on a regular basis. So we love everybody. We're always outgoing and having a good time in life. We're always making things happen. There's similarities to us, and people don't like that. For some reason, they don't like that energy. Like when I remember going to a dance and seeing all these guys just sitting there while I'm out there dancing, having an amazing time, literally dancing on the dance floor. And, girls are dancing with me and we're having a great time. And you could sense the energy from, like, you could tell the guys didn't like me, but there was no reason not to like me. Right. It's like I'm dancing with life and they're sitting there,
watching,
just watching and not experiencing life. I'm out there experiencing and literally flowing with the ether of the world and, experiencing God, and they're just sitting there. And I think that bothers people on a level that maybe they can't comprehend or we can't comprehend. And
are you extremely not confrontational, but are you very direct as well?
Yeah.
Me too. People 100%. Hate that.
Yes,
people hate that so much.
Yes.
I'm like, listen, you have a problem. Let's talk about the problem. Like,
yes.
And I can be an ass. Like I will be first, but I'm too loud. I'm the loud one, whatever. But also I have completely forgotten it after we have talked or whatever. It's gone to me. It never happened.
Same.
And so, I think there's something about that scares the crap out of people, though. That scares people to be like, let's fix it. Like, this is what's up.
100% authentic and truthful and in touch with yourself. I know my flaws. I tell people openly, when I got out of the military, I went to strip clubs and things like that. I can talk about that openly. There's no secrets with me. Literally anything you ever want to talk about, I will talk about. And there's nothing, I'm holding nothing back. And maybe that's what it is, but I think that that's a characteristic of a person that I think people are uncomfortable with, because I think naturally people are just uncomfortable in their own skin. It's weird being projected from another plane into this body that, you're having to experience life through this body, and but I'm the,
accepting your flaws too. You're like, okay, yeah, I did that. Like, so
yeah,
that was my last chapter. This is my new chapter. And that's very much how I am. I'm like, my mom likes to go back over chapters and I don't like to. I will. I'm not saying I'm opposed to talking. I'm just like, listen, that's your old house and you picked up all your belongings and you moved.
that's
Like, this
exactly
is
right.
where you live now, and I'll tell her things like that. And she's like, I know, but this and this. And we all have regrets. Like, I have a lot of regret, but also I can do nothing with that big pile. What I can change, I will, but what I can't change, it's just, it is what it is.
When I started going on these podcasts and stuff, even doing the things I did in the military and being on Stranger Things and doing all these crazy things all the time, I'm friends with pro baseball players and I do all these amazing things. Like, I think that that's something that, um, you know, people can't wrap their head around, like how you can freely express yourself and live your life. And I guess I forgot where I was going with that, but
Be like an open book. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. What did you say? What did you say just before that? Bring me
Just
that
about
spark it.
how people don't like that, people that are very open. That's why I called this Unfiltered, because I am very much, it's a warning basically. And rise, right? Like, because you have to rise above whatever happened to you. Like, I told
Yeah.
you some stuff. I told this whole podcasting people all my stuff. I don't care. Like, it's so past. But if I can help one person, and this is why I think all of us, what we're supposed to do and why I do the things I do with my nursing now, is because if I can help somebody that's like my brother who passed away, then I have done something, right? Like, or if I smiled at an old person today and held the door and said hi, like, how much skin is that off your back? None. Like, but that might mean everything to that really lonely person or whatever, and I learned that early in life. Like, this might change somebody's whole life. Like, maybe they're that low, right? Maybe that little energy that you trickle down gives them enough to pick up. It's all batteries. No, I'm not saying give your whole battery, because you got to function. I mean, we all do.
Well,
But
that's what I think. That's what the thought was that, I've been on podcasts. I've been on Sam Tripoli's show, which is a big show. I've been on Tony Merkel's show, The Confessionals, which is a big show. And whenever I go on these shows, I don't look at it as like, oh, I'm famous now. Or like, I don't look at, like, my former self would have been like, I would have wanted to post it all over social media and tell all my friends what I'm doing, and stick it to the people who never thought I could do something in life or whatever like that. But I'm not reliving that life anymore. I'm not going over who I didn't get to marry, who I didn't get to sleep with, what I didn't get to do. I didn't get to play baseball and in the pros, or I'm not going over that stuff over and over. I'm not spiraling into my past self. I'm focusing on, like, the moving forward, my new self. Who am I tomorrow? Who am I today? I'm not thinking about, just like you said, and I think that's where that comes from, about, like, we just can easily forget. When my wife and I argue, when I think about it, I go, I'm never going to talk to her again. And then, like, an hour later, we're talking and
yeah,
talking. It's
same,
like,
same.
because
Yeah,
I don't live in that
yeah.
trauma of the past. I don't just spiral into, I try to vibrate into a better place. And for people who listen to me, who are friends and family, they would probably think you're full of shit, because I'm a different person, and because they think of me as the same person I was when I was in high school or whatever it is. And I'm like, I'm not even close to being that same person. I'm not. I'm not. I'm a shell. I'm a different version of myself. That's an old me.
Right.
That's a shell of me. That whoever you think I am. I'm not a jealous person like I was in high school. I'm not fighting and smoking Newports and partying and stuff like that anymore. I don't do that anymore. That's just not me. And so I can't even think about harming another person. I will fight if I have to. I got guns. I will
Defend
shoot
your
somebody if I
family.
have to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I will protect my family, but I can't, my growth has become on a spiritual level of, like, I pick up every bug, and I don't want to run over any crickets when I'm cutting grass. And, as crazy as that sounds, I don't want to kill any life because it's me. Clearly it's there for a reason, because it has its place in the world, and it's, a function of what how we're supposed to live. So again, I know that sounds very tree huggery, or however you want to say it. I don't care. But,
Yeah.
but it's
But
just
like
where I'm at in
you
life.
obviously have your thing with this, like how I said, oh, my thing is like Mormons and I see it everywhere. And you're seeing 33s and this
Yep.
parallel stuff everywhere. And for example, I know you have like a huge example list of things. And I thought it was so interesting when you brought up the 33s. So I was going to have you tell people a couple just to show them like,
Well, I get angel numbers all the time and synchronicities. And typically what that means is when people get angel numbers, to me, it's just what the feeling I get from the angel numbers is that you're on the right path in life. You're living what you're supposed to be doing in this world right now. You're living that. And I get those as a reaffirming, wherever you're at. Like, I moved from one house to another. It was exactly 44.4 miles, right? It's like, there's always that, don't worry, that's the exact path you're on. You're, quite literally a path you're on is the 44.4,
right,
which is an angel number 444, right? So I start getting these numbers all the time. I see them all the time in times of, like, I remember having this thought about doing a podcast, and for whatever reason, I started seeing VVV everywhere. And in my gut, in my instinct, my grandma, her name was Velma. Her name started with a V. So to me, that was like an angel number. Maybe it was my grandma saying, hey, you're on the right path, or somebody was giving me a sign, something that you could recognize. It could be in the form of a butterfly, like my brother does. He gets butterfly. He sees a literal butterfly, and that's his sign to him. I think the universe, I think God speaks to everybody in whatever way they can accept that information, right? And
but
so,
even you've been sick of it at times. I heard this funny one. I can't remember which one. And you were like, I do not want to see another 33 today or something. And you were like, and then it happened again or something. It was so funny because you have all these things that you've studied that fall into that, I guess, like.
Well, once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it, And so I guess once God sees that you recognize the number 33, then you start seeing, the number 33 everywhere. And I got some baseball cards here. I'll give you an example. Like this one right here is a UFO autograph card of a guy named Mike Trout. All right. He's a famous baseball player. A lot of people know him. He plays for the Angels, who are in Los Angeles on the 33rd, right? In Anaheim, matter of fact, on the 33rd parallel. And this card, like once I started getting on the path of 33rd parallel stuff and I started studying it, then all of a sudden everything that came in my life was 33, right? It was like numbers were coming to me with 33. It was a flood of information, as if someone was saying you're on the right path, right? So this one was an example. This is numbered, and it's hard to see, but this is numbered. Let me get back. So this is numbered 33 of 50.
Oh, wow.
Right. So like things started coming into your life. And then I'd watched this documentary called the Bridgewater Triangle. And it was about this area in Massachusetts where a lot of paranormal stuff happens. And I watched this documentary, and it was about puckwudgies. And they talked about how puckwudgies are like the little troll things, like off of Harry Potter, like Dobby, whatever his name was. He was a puckwudgie, right? But in Massachusetts, they have myths that they talk about, and Native Americans have talked about for a long time. So I watched the documentary, and they talked about puckwudgies. The next night, my brother told me a story, and he was like, hey man, you're going to laugh about this. And he was telling me about his neighbor who went hunting in the woods and came across a puckwudgie, but he described it as a leprechaun. And then like that same day, I got this, like on my feed on eBay, this card for some reason appeared on my eBay feed somehow, because I got all baseball cards, but this is a puckwudgie.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's numbered 33 of 50, right? So it's again, it's another one of those things where when you start seeing it, you can't unsee it. Let me get my camera right. You can't unsee it, and then things start coming in. That might be something kind of silly, but if you think about the timing of something, It was like I watched the documentary, then my brother told me a story, and then the next day after that, I get this card that's numbered 33 of 50 of a puck wedgie come across my feed on eBay. So again, it's messages that are sent to you in a way that seems like it can't be a coincidence, right? It's like, I told a story about my dog Penny of 16 years. She died, and my wife reads a lot. She was reading a book the night that Penny died, and it said that Penny was a good girl, right? Penny was a good dog or something like that. So it was like a weird, like that
coincidence.
can't be a coincidence. And so once you start noticing those things in life, I think that the angels around us, the angels that are the good angels that are protecting us and looking out for us, our guides in life, our spirit guides, I think that they reward that. I think they go, yes, yes, yes. And then they start sending you things in, me and a friend of mine was the guy that did our gutters. We were talking about some similar things, and I was telling him about angel numbers. He goes, "Oh, I know all about angel numbers, man." And he showed me a tattoo on his finger, and the tattoo said 222. But the rest of the day, we found it weird that we were both vibing with that, right? So the rest of the day, he kept sending me pictures. Everywhere he went was the number 333 or 222 or 444. It was on the form of license plates or receipts or whatever. So it was almost like the angels were saying, this is the path whatever, for whatever reason. It was either like you're on this path for a reason, or you had to talk to him at this time because it furthered something into your life that you needed to learn. So I just look at it as like nothing is a coincidence. And sometimes I think we're projecting these things from a different realm. Like I said, maybe it's us, maybe the spirit guides are ourselves from a different realm projecting saying, hey, yeah, keep doing what you're doing.
Or maybe it's all energy, right?
Yeah, right.
Line. I'm always curious, like you said about this line and like tapping in, like maybe that's why, like maybe there's only such a depth to this. Like maybe that's why they don't want everyone to tap in all at the same time. Because then I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about fallen angels, like obviously if it's a good thing, they don't want that to happen all at once because then they have nowhere to go, right? And so I think it's interesting, and I know you have a list of places on the 30, like you gave example like LA and was it Georgia you said is the new LA?
Atlanta.
So like all these places straight across, like is Washington DC by the way on the 33rd?
No.
Okay.
No, but a lot of Iraq, Baghdad, Iraq, which is the cradle of civilization with, ancient Mesopotamia and Babylon. That's 33rd. Kabul, Afghanistan, Damascus, Syria, Israel. There's a lot of places where wars are happening, right? You can kind of see what I'm trying to say here about like, if there's energy there, to me, there's a level of, there's evil people who are running the world and they know about this energy and they're worshiping the fallen angels. Remember, a third of fallen angels, 33% fell on Mount Hermon. And I think that there are people in global leadership positions, like, political, kings, presidents, whoever, who know this. And I think that they have to continue making a sacrifice to the evil people of the world, because I think that the evil people, I say the evil people, but the fallen ones, the fallen angels, I think they make sacrifices to them, blood sacrifices, in order to satisfy them. Otherwise, I think there would be chaos. So I think they literally are killing people on the 33rd parallel, or like I said, Kennedy was assassinated on the 33rd parallel. Kobe Bryant died on the 33rd parallel. There's always Marilyn Monroe was from the 33rd. She was assassinated, or on the 33rd parallel.
I agree on the assassin part. Yes.
So like there's all these there's so many people born on the 33rd parallel, and that goes back to so many incredibly famous people, and I've listed them before, like Marilyn Monroe and Elvis and Johnny Cash and all these people that are just superstars, right? Who have this excess amount of energy and charisma that normal people don't have. Okay. They're born on this line. Jesus was born on this line. Even somebody like Kanye West and Oprah and people who are like Martin Luther King Jr. and people who are big names, right? That were born on this line. But so I think that there are people who know about the 33rd parallel. I think there are people who are worshiping the fallen angels, and they're making sacrifices to the fallen angels in the form of, and they'll do it they'll do it some way significant that shows the number 33. And I've mentioned this before, how a good example is let me hang on. Let me change it better.
Yep. I'll
Hang
talk
on.
for a minute. I find it interesting, the things you're saying, because I think maybe one of the first people, or not the first, but one of the older people that may have figured this out was John Dee, because he was an extreme mathematician, but he also dealt with maps and cartography. And he also was one of the first people to push a one world order. And he spoke to angels, and I'm just like, that's all interesting. Like, just saying.
Well, I was about to bring up the point of Ukraine and Russia, right? It's like, what do they want Ukraine to become? The 33rd member of NATO, right? So it's like there's always this flash of, let's show the number 33 as a way to show the fallen angels, we did this for them, right? So like Kennedy being assassinated on the 33rd parallel, going underneath the 33rd overpass, for example, is prime. Those are prime examples of what I'm talking about. Or like, you know, how, again, these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, millions of people have lost their lives on these lines, right? On this line, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, again, on that same line. There's always some kind of a war going on or around that line. There's always, if you look at any kind of, you know, again, even there was a shooting where this guy went into a church and killed 9 people here in Charleston, South Carolina. And it was like, that kind of stuff. It seems like it always happens, again, as a show of like, this is for you. You see it in the movies now too. You see it everywhere you look. I mean, I was watching Top Gun one day, the newer one. And then, you know, he was shooting bullets at somebody, and it stopped right on the number 33. And his bullets did it, like clay got jammed or something on the number 33. And it's like they're doing this as a way to show, like, we're doing this for you. I remember watching
paying homage, right?
Yeah. I remember watching this Tucker Carlson interview where he interviewed Mike Pence. And it was like a bizarre conversation, because Tucker was trying to ask Mike Pence simple questions like, why do we need to be in Ukraine? Why do we need to, you know, for our people to die and bleed and lose treasure over in another country? And it was a bizarre conversation. The answers he had, it didn't seem like it was like a genuine thought out answer. It seemed like it was scripted, almost like he had to say it. But he went straight to saying something along the lines of, we need to get more tanks. We need 33 tanks in Ukraine. And it's like, right. It's like always something like that. I can't really think of any more right off the top of my head, but it's always stuff like that.
I have a question about 33 for you. What do you think the Freemasons are so obsessed, other than the angle, the degree?
Well, right? I don't think I think they just know about the energies of the world. I think that's what it boils down to, is that, and I think of the 33rd parallel as like this main circuit of, if we live in a holographic reality, I think of it as like some sort of a main circuit, if you will, of energy. And I think that they know about sacred geometry and they know about these energy lines all over, because it's clear they built Washington, D.C. on the ley line. I mean, and there's so much geometry and symbolism there that proves my point about that, right? It's like, I think that's what that is. And it's not a coincidence that the 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemasonry is in Charleston, South Carolina. The headquarters is in Charleston on the 33rd. So there's, matter of fact, I think a lot of their Freemason temples have been built on the 33rd parallel. There's one in Iraq. When I was deployed to Iraq, I was driving through, and we happened to have this older man that was with us. He was a civilian, but he worked for the government, and he was a Freemason. He pointed out this building that was like it was one of the biggest buildings I've ever seen. It was huge, and the pillars were huge. And he said, that's a Freemason building right there. And it shocked me, because I was like, Freemason, what are they doing in Iraq? I didn't think of Freemason. I I was
Yeah.
thinking of Freemasonry as like this Christian thing, but it's not. It's a spiritual thing. It's a, you know, as long as somebody believes in a God, they don't have to believe in the Christian God. They just have to believe in a God. And
Mhm.
so that, again, that was one of those things that kind of woke me up to where I started going, hey, there's some weird stuff going on here. It's like,
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a Freemason building in Iraq. That's crazy. And so,
Um,
um, yeah, those are some of the things. I mean, you know, I know I've kind of been scatterbrained with the way I've been talking about some of this
this
stuff.
is how
But
I talk. My
yeah, I don't
audience
have
is very used to me being all over the place because I have a little ADD, so they're used to me. And I honestly believe that I think the people that learn it best, just like John D, he even said, "What is the language of God? It's numbers." You
yes.
cannot just make this up. He's old. He had not a lot to like gain from this. He died poor and destitute, all these things. Like he didn't gain notoriety from this either, by the way. He almost probably got burned at the stake when King James popped on the scene because he he did not like stuff like that, you know, woo-woo at all. He was burning up everybody that was woo-woo. So he had a lot to lose by trying to do what? Wake people up, right? Like this was the whole deal. And so I'm like, did he go about it the right way? I mean, channeled knowledge is spooky. I don't care. It's funny to me because I always bring this up, and I don't know if you've heard this before, but like almost every religion is channeled, and they almost all have the same sound. Like,
Yeah.
so Mormonism was he had a fit of darkness and he fell asleep and he woke up and God the Father and the Son were there and he wrote it down in a book and it became the Book of Mormon. And so Muhammad, same thing. He didn't write it down because they were non-written people. He had his scribes memorize it. They weren't called scribes, but eventually they became scribes and wrote it down. And okay, his was Gabriel, but he had a fit and woke up and da-da, you know, and then we go into, okay, let's do a fun one. Crowley. Crowley also saw and talked to things after channeling. It was AWAS. He wrote a book. It was the Book of the Law, which became many things. Scientology. You can go down the line, boom, 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 boom. These kind of channeled things, but here's the difference. I'm not saying knowledge is bad to be received, but when you're seeking it out in a specific kind of way with certain intentions, on top of the fact that all these people, minus Muhammad, he's a little different. We're looking for exaltation of self, right? Like very much Crowleyan, I'm my own God type situation. They all had to pay a weird price, like sexually or otherwise. It was like sleep with their wife, start polygamy, marry little kids. Like, what? And I don't think God plays like that. Like somewhere in there, you got to be like, probably not God.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah.
what I was saying about the you know, the sacrifice thing is like, I
Mhm.
feel like, you know, they're promised power, technology, money, different things in order to get these things. And if they don't do them, they probably they probably have to, you know, sacrifice something. And, or they also have to sacrifice something in the form of like, you know, well, we will give you money, we will give you power. Because look how many people who are famous or who are celebrities or who are
Asking.
politicians.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to give up something in life in order to get that. They have to.
Look at
They
how
have to.
many of them. Look at how many of them have weird dead kid stories, parent stories, just random, like the most random stuff you've ever
Yeah,
seen.
it is.
Promise.
Always.
Promise.
And you can see that in Hollywood with all their kids are weird now, and they're it's like they have to. It's like they can't fight it. I saw a picture of one celebrity with his kids, and his kids were like trans or something, and he was just like,
Mhm.
he had this look of like despair on his face, and I'm like, that's probably part of the deal of, you know, selling your soul to the devil kind of thing,
Well,
you
that's
know.
what they say. The rumor is that Kobe really loved his daughter that died with him. And the rumor is they wanted her to be trans. And he said, nah, ain't happening.
Yeah,
And look at what they did, you
yeah,
know?
they
And so
sacrificed him on the 33rd.
yep.
Yep.
And so, you know, we can see these things. And I'm not saying like you, I'm not saying every single person involved knows. Maybe they know not what they do. Maybe they do know. Maybe they're still good people. Maybe they're fighting from the inside. We don't know. We don't know. All we know is like you were given a mission. I feel like it's a mission, like military wise. You were given a mission. I was given a mission. I straight up tried to be Jonah and be like, nah, I'm not doing that. nope. I am busy, busy. I got 6 kids. I'm not doing a podcast. I did one as a guest, and that's all I thought it would be. And then it wasn't that. And then I was like,
Mhm.
I don't know how to run the damn computer. Like, I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
put anything out. I'm older, you know. I honestly didn't know. And God's like, well, you'll figure it out. Let's go. And I'm like, nobody's going to talk to me. Nobody's going to listen to me. This is stupid. I know like 2 people. No, I don't even have that many friends because the whole thing what we talked about. And I'm like, nobody cares. Well, come to find out, I guess they do. Like, God makes a way for the things he wants you to do. I truly believe that. And that's what I believe. Yeah.
I 100% agree. And I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole with it because I'm sure you're probably trying
I
to
like
wrap
the
it up
rabbit
soon.
hole. Yeah, but I know you got to go soon. But
No,
we'll do
no,
it
that's
part
fine.
2. This is super fun. Like I love talking to somebody else that's actually experienced this because it's almost a painful thing. And I don't want to be wah wah. I love podcasting and doing this for people now. Now that I know how to edit a show, now that I'm not crying every time I do this because I don't know how to fix it or put it out. Like I literally cried. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't even have an Instagram. I didn't know what to do. Like I really didn't.
Well, I
But
wrestle with that too. And I'm so glad I did it because I wrestle with the idea of like, I used to be in the military and I used to work for a certain person and I didn't want to get murdered. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that too.
so I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't want anything to happen. I don't want anything bad to come on my family. I didn't want to bring my family in any kind of spotlight or put any attention on my last name or anything like that. But I'm glad I did it. And the reason I am glad I did it is because I get to talk to people like you and it makes me feel normal. It makes me feel like, I get the vibe with my tribe and it makes me feel good because I was missing that in my life and I needed that in my life because I didn't it's like I lost 4 of my best friends growing up to crazy tragic accidents, and I realized as I got older that I don't really have a lot of friends. I don't hang out a lot of places. I don't fit in easily, right? And so to fit
I
in,
do at first. I do the first little like, okay, everybody likes me at first, and then they get to know you, and they're
yeah,
like, "You're crazy, crazy." Like,
yeah. It's the
cool.
same with me. I have the conversation with my wife all the time about it, and but I've gotten used to it. It's just, but it feels good to be able to talk to people like you, like I said, because I get to talk to people who don't think I'm crazy. The first episode,
So hard.
I'm sorry, the second podcast I did was with Mark Steves, and Mark said I kept saying I know it sounds weird, but he's like, dude, it's just like you're
My
not.
family thinks I'm crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
No
he's like,
show
this
name.
is weird. We're in the weird, man. You
Shout
don't have
out
to
Mark. Yeah.
tell it. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
So I
great.
was like, it was then that I realized, like, oh, I'm amongst my people. Like, it's good.
Right.
That makes me feel good. So it's important to be around people who are like-minded, whether you're, going through some struggles in life and depression or whatever, or if you're just looking for somebody to make you feel normal again. It's good to be around like-minded people, whether that's baseball card collectors, like I'm a nerd with, but
Right. All of
um,
it. Yeah.
yeah, it's because believe it or not, it's even hard to find people who collect baseball cards. And so when you do, it's fun. It's nice to get all that stuff out. And also I'm doing this podcast now and it's sharing a message of like love. And I told my wife, she said, you got a big responsibility now. And I said, yeah, but I'm not talking about bad things. It's all love and like light and energy and positivity and frequency and good things. I'm not out here sharing some negative message. So I'm not trying to be perfect with it. I'm not trying to get the message exactly right. I'm trying to share my experiences and to show people that, it's okay to have these weird experiences. It's okay to think that it's weird that you have telepathy sometimes, or you thought something into existence, or to see these weird signs. And I think there's more people like us than not. So for those who are listening, just know that you're not alone. So,
Yeah, I like to put that out there because it can be really sad and depressing if you don't think of like we get to do this, we get to find people or get led somewhere. But if you shut it out because you're so afraid, fear is not God's tool ever. Fear is another person's tool. And here's the thing about fear is it keeps you, like you said, low on the vibration, but it also blocks things from you. And I really believe that that is the point, is each one of us are special in a different way, like way different. And God knows that. And he'll put to work in you, like maybe this is our thing on podcast or whatever, but maybe somebody else's is like in real life and talking to people or whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter. It's like you'll be led to that. Everybody has a higher purpose, and we all get busy, like you said, with little league and ballet. And as a mom of 6, like, people, I freaking get it. Like, I get it. I'm a grandma of 2, mom of 6. Like, they all have their significant others, like holidays and all these things. But at the end of the day, and my mom even said, you're doing a lot of podcasts. You're burning at both ends, but I never feel like that. I never do. You know, it doesn't feel taxing. It feels like this is what I'm supposed to do. And she gets upset too. Like, you put your whole life, oh my gosh, like all these things. And this is sad. And I'm like, Mom, I just don't care. Like, she gets upset.
But what we're doing is we're being used as a vessel for God, for God's will. That's what we're doing right now. And it doesn't feel like a job to me. I enjoy doing it. I stay up late at night editing and stuff. And it's exciting to me to do it because
so much.
I do. I just feel like I think people should just listen to God. He's talking to us every day in some way. You just got to listen to him, and just let him use you for how you are.
Yeah. Pray always and do not cease. When God's talking in the Bible, if you minus a lot of things out of it, he's not going to the Pharisees or the Sadducees. He's not going to the learned, special, like, I'm not saying if you're special that this can't happen, but he's not going to the people that know everything, right? He went to the people that were kind of sketchy. Like, let's be honest. These people were sketchy. Like, Paul was sketchy mofo in his before life. Like, he was not a good boy, and he was a murderer, and King David, don't even get me started. And what did God call him though? His beloved. How powerful is that to say, look at how screwed up he was. And God loved him and called him his beloved, like not just love, his beloved. That is like bananas. And he loves us all like that too. And it's hard to accept that because we're all bred from the moment you take your first breath that you're not enough or pretty enough or handsome enough or big enough or buff enough or smart enough or whatever the thing is. But actually, God made you exactly how you are for a reason, right? Like,
and he always puts you exactly where you need to be. I coached my son's Little League team this year, and there's always an issue with Little League where coaches always want to stack their teams with the best players. It's a very political, weird game.
My husband and I did this with our boy did travel teaming, and I know what you're talking about. It's true.
Yeah, yes. It's very this unwritten thing that happens that everybody does. And I really just came at it from the point of I wanted my son to be on a team with someone who he can learn from. I didn't care about winning. I didn't care about all-stars. Anyways, they ended up needing a coach, and they thrust me into the job. And I begrudgingly took the job. But then they put all the kids on my team who didn't have 2-parent homes. They didn't have good family lives. So everybody who was on my team was inexperienced. They were young. They were, not just, they needed a lot of love. And, I was upset about it at first, but then as the season went on, I realized I'm supposed to be these kids' coach, right? They're supposed to learn from me. I'm supposed to take them in, and I'm supposed to hug them and tie their shoes and give them the love that they need, because nobody else is suited for that better than me,
Right.
And so I started to, I'm getting better at it. I'm starting to realize that wherever I am, that's where God needs me to be at all times. Mm-hmm. So I don't fight against it. I just literally just let him use me for whatever he needs to use me for. And because you can't sit there and just dwell I'm not going to, we went 0-11 or 0-12 or something like that. And it sucked every step of the way. But man, at that last game, when we started kicking butt and we almost won the game, it showed me that that's exactly right. I was exactly supposed to teach these kids that lesson of how to lose, that lesson of how to be a better baseball player. Because the kids on the other team, if they're on stacked teams, they're not going to learn anything. They're not going to learn from kicking butt every game. They're going to think that they're all stars all the time. But it's harder to come from a place of, I don't think I'm anything to now I think I can do anything. It's harder to come to that point. And once you get that energy built up in your mind, that you become unstoppable. And so I think that next year and the years after, I think these kids will travel with them throughout life. I think that those things are impactful to people, just like the way Christ did. And I'm not comparing myself to Christ, but
no.
He was the one spending the time with all the people who were, less than, and people who were told that you're not enough, or you're ugly, or you're crippled, or you're blind, or whatever. And he sat with them. He told them that you're more than that. And it changed their stars. It changed their frequency. It lifted them up in a way that in a way that lasted for thousands of years, or maybe even longer, however long people have been telling these stories about him. And if you think about the impact that he had on somebody, that's the life that we need to try to live. And just like I said, let God use us however he wants to use us, and just be accepting of whatever it is.
Jesus came for the broken. And I'm like you, I live in the middle of Utah as a ex-Mormon person that speaks out against Mormons, surrounded by Mormons. Okay. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is not, and my mom's always like, they're going to bump you off. I'm like, they're not going to do anything to me. Like, I'm not even afraid.
I'm not either.
It is what it is. And you know what? If that were to happen to me, well, what a ending. I mean, right? We never know. And like those kids, that lesson for you wasn't about baseball. For them, it was probably so much more. Like it probably will literally help them in their whole lives. Like, this person cared about me when I needed somebody. And I know that as a kid that had a pretty rough life early on, and it matters. It really does matter. And even if it's just opening the door for somebody or smiling. And I think that that's what 2020 kind of robbed from us. And it was a grand spell, because if you look into the OTO, they wear a mask and they stand 6 feet apart. There's no coincidence there. Sorry to say.
Well, I was just gonna say the exact same thing. When you take a candle that's lit and one that's unlit, and you put that candle next to that, it's gonna light that candle, right? Yes. And so if they're keeping us apart, then it's hard to have those candles lit. It's hard to carry on the light of God and to spread that light and that love and that positive energy and that positive frequency. So that's my theory on that. That's why I think that they were keeping us apart, for sure.
Yes.
They didn't want us to, amazing. I don't think they wanted us to share that light of God with everybody, but we're all here for a reason. We're here to spread that light and that love. So that's where I think I am. And I think that's where you are. That's where everybody who does these shows, regardless if they know it or not, that's what they're doing. That's what Sam Tripoli's doing. Yeah. He's having a bigger impact on people than
he doesn't even realize.
He doesn't even realize that he has a bigger impact than some preachers do, or that some, and I don't think people realize that, the importance. I've told Tony Merkel this on his show, was that, he has this ability to heal people in a way that he didn't realize. Like when people are telling their paranormal stories to him, he's listening to them. He's receptive of the information. He doesn't judge them. So in a way, he is like a therapist to them, and he doesn't realize that, and I think that, again, people don't realize that we're here for a reason. We're all just beacons of light for people right now. And I hope that people who are listening right now will continue to light people's world up. When you open the door for people, tell people how you doing, you smell nice, you look nice, whatever it is. And believe me, it will light their world up. Just one little compliment will light their world up. So, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Any other critical things about this 33rd parallel before we get going into where to find you and all the things?
No, I I kind of covered it. Like I said, I covered all the topics with it.
Yes.
And if you want to find out any more about the 33rd parallel, I've been on a few shows now talking about it, and every time I talk to somebody, it's always a little bit different. I'll remember something that I forgot or whatever the case is. But like I talked about a lot about Bruce Cathy and his ideas of this world grid that we're on, and I didn't really talk about it much here, but you can find that kind of stuff. I talk about it on my show on the Awaken Podcast, and you can find me at theawakenpodcast.com. Right now I'm on Spotify only, but I am going to be uploading to all of the platforms so everybody can have access to it. And you can find me on Spotify at The Awaken Podcast 33. You can also find me on Instagram at The Awaken Podcast 33. Unfortunately, The Awaken Podcast was taken by somebody and they don't use it anymore. So, I want it all to be perfect, but it is what it is, So,
So
but
I
yeah,
encourage everyone to find Brad and look up all his stuff. We just did a little skim because I always let it go wherever it's going to go. And God talked a lot today, so that was just fine with me. Sometimes two or more in his name is church, and we had us a little church today. So
that's right.
I'm happy for that because it must need to be heard, or maybe we just needed to hear each other. So, that's what I do with my podcast. Everybody that knows that, but I appreciate your time, and I had a great time with this, and I hope you understand that I think you are helping people a lot because there's a lot of us misfit toys out there. And I think this conversation will help people. I really do. And so I appreciate your time, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good one.
Take care. Thank you for having me.